Greetings. This is Justin Allen with the Elite Nurse Practitioner. Welcome to the Elite Nurse Practitioner Show. Today we are going to be talking to a successful advanced practice nurse. Normally our episodes are consultation calls with nurse practitioners who need help, but we are going to have some episodes where we interview nurse practitioners and advanced practice nurses who have developed a successful business. We will talk about the pros and the cons of starting businesses, issues they have ran into, and everything in between. So I hope these episode types help nurse practitioners out there understand how to create a successful business and to know that there are other successful nurse practitioners out there that have done it. All right, and on to the episode. Hello, everyone. Today's podcast will be a change from the norm. Today, we will not be doing a consultation, but rather I'll be interviewing a successful advanced practice nurse and pick her brain on what has brought her success. I'll be talking with Cassie Lane, who is the founder of Injectables EDU, which is a blog and a resource dedicated to teaching advanced practice nurses everything aesthetics. She has also collaborated with me on an aesthetics course, just FYI. Currently, she is working as a CRNA part-time and has focused her efforts almost exclusively to her aesthetics business. What's up, Cassie? How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Glad to be, the first expert guest to come on. Excited to share.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for taking your time to hop on here. I know you're pretty busy. So let's just get right to it. Just introduce yourself to everyone. Basically explain where you're at in life.
Yeah, I'm Cassie. My background is that I'm a nurse anesthetist. I've been doing that for about a decade, and I kind of got into aesthetics doing it more as a side gig. I took a weekend course, started injecting friends and family, and I really started with Botox parties and then started expanding into fillers and chemical peels. And when I first started, I just started by subleasing a room a couple days a week from an esthetician, and then from there got one room and then two rooms, and now I actually am in the middle of purchasing my own office little building, which is really, really exciting. So I think I started the way a lot of advanced practice providers start, which is on your own, being an entrepreneur, a little bit side gig in it. And now it's really my full-time gig. I do about 4 shifts a month doing anesthesia, which I still love doing anesthesia, but I think I really love being a business owner more.
So you went from working full-time, starting a side gig then converts over into basically a full-time practice. And then you go to part-time work. So basically following the model that I teach and the model that, a lot of successful nurse practitioners, CRNAs, PAs, just a lot of entrepreneurs in general have done.
Yeah. And I think we share a really similar, strong background in a love of personal finance. And that's what really got me into starting my own side business originally, was this idea of owning your own business and some of the tax implications. And just once you get in that entrepreneurial mindset, it's like you see it everywhere. I was really into financial independence. And this all started before I did this. We had a short-term rental. It all kind of started with getting our personal finances really tuned up and knowing our net worth. And I know you're a huge proponent of all that.
Oh, absolutely. There's so many people that are not, just completely clueless about their finances. So I think once you start learning about just basic finance, it really opens your mind to what's possible. And like you said, starting a business, it's the fastest way to reach financial independence. Would you not agree?
Yeah. And I love the idea. Originally, I really wanted to do something a little bit more passive and spend more time with my family. And that's what a lot of people say to me, like, I want the flexible work schedule. I want to spend more time with my kids. And I don't necessarily always think taking this path will, at least in the short term, lead to that. I think it definitely can in the long term. But I think in the short term, you really have to bust your butt, and it's extra hours, and it has to become a little bit top priority, which sometimes can be hard when balancing family and all that. But I do think it's the best way to, the sky is a limit as far as how much money you can make, which is crazy. There is no cap.
No. When you're a W-2 employee, you're capped at $140,000 a year, whatever it is. There's just no other way to make more money unless you work, more hours if you're paid hourly. So yeah, there's absolutely no cap with owning a business. You can go from $0 to $1 million, depending on how much work you want to put into it.
Think about the mentality of abundance. And I know you're a big proponent of that as well. And that's a huge foundation of how I run my business, is the idea of abundance and that the sky is the limit. And also in aesthetics, it's so important to remember, there is such an untapped market of clients entering into it all the time. People are like, worried that the market has too many injectors, and it's like this idea that there's 100 clients, and if I get one, it's stealing from somebody. Like, for the most part, it's becoming so much more mainstream, and most of my clients are new to aesthetics in general because it's just becoming so much more acceptable and people talk about it.
So let's talk about that saturation. So do you feel like that with aesthetics, especially, like you said, I hear it all the time too. There's an aesthetics practice on every corner. I can't get in this. There's too many people doing it. I mean, what do you say to that? Like, I mean, what do you say to someone who lives in, let's say, Phoenix, Arizona, for example, and it's like, I don't want to do aesthetics. There's one on every corner. What do you say to that? I mean, how do you motivate that person to open their eyes and, truly believe the concept of abundance, that there's so much money out there. There's so much out there for you to take that. Why are you worried about it? Why do you have this scarcity mindset when there's so much more? So I'm like, what do you tell someone that's fearful of that?
Yeah, I also liken it to, how many hairdressers there are in nail shops and stuff like that, because there is enough for there to be multiple in every community. If anything, I actually think there is not enough quality injectors out there, and you want to be one of those quality injectors. And when you are skilled and you go about this the right way, you will get the clients. Now, that's not to say, I love my mentor. She says, if you build it, they will not come. It takes a lot more than just being good at injecting. All the marketing stuff, which you really hit on, and we really hit on in our course as well, is so, so important. But the biggest thing for me is it's like 90% of the aesthetics market is not tapped yet. And millennials are just like, I have so many millennials as my clients, and I'm always like, can I post this on Instagram? And they're always like, oh yeah, like I'm already videoing this right now for my own Instagram. So they're talking about it and they're getting their parents into it. And it's just like the market is getting flooded with new clients, and we need a lot more injectors in here to keep up with it.
Do you feel like it's regional? Like, do you think that somewhere like Phoenix or somewhere like where you're located at, like, do you feel like that there's a point to where it gets capped? Or do you feel like that as long as you're delivering, quality care, quality injections, basically, what the hell you're doing? Do you feel like that someone skilled can go into any market they want and build a successful aesthetics practice?
Yes, definitely. I think, it's like in Chicago, there's a place where there's literally 3 spas on the same corner and they're all busy. I really don't think we're at that tipping point by any means yet. It's so funny, even just as a CRNA, I remember when I was in school, people always saying, or before I went to school, like that market is oversaturated. There's too many CRNAs. Well, I tell you what, in the last decade, I've never seen a time where there was a difficult time getting a job as a CRNA. And I think if you come in as an injector with the skills and with the marketing, that you can 100% be successful. But you can't just go rent a space, not do any marketing, and expect people to flock to you. That's not going to happen either.
Right. So marketing is the number one function of any business. You would agree with that, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how good you are. No one knows you exist. It doesn't matter. Let's talk about maybe some more specifics here. So it's not saturated. How much do you feel like let's say that there's a nurse practitioner who's doing this right now, who's interested in maybe opening up a wellness practice or an aesthetics clinic or whatever. Talk about your personal experience here. How much did it cost you to get started? I know you started off part-time and stuff. Can you walk us through maybe your expenses from when you first started, the part-time gig, working full-time as a CRNA? Can you walk us through what it cost you to get started and maybe what it's cost you to scale and grow to where you're at? I mean, if you don't mind sharing the numbers.
Yeah. And I will say Injectables EDU, I actually have a blog post which completely breaks this down, and I'm going to pull it up now so I can reference it.
Cool.
But expect about $10K for starting costs. And that includes your training, that includes your malpractice. And I am going to pull up how much does it cost to start a Botox business. The short version is it really totals to be about $10K. And that's about what it ran me. And that's obviously where I pulled those numbers from.
How long ago was that?
It's been about 3 years. So, I mean, I've done a lot in a short amount of time. You know what I mean? It's like if you come in like guns blazing, and some of it I think helps, as a CRNA, I was already really good with needles. And like this was in my wheelhouse. I had been poking people, epidurals, IVs, blocks, all that for a lot of years. So that needle work does help, but you don't have to have that either to get started and be good. So my course that I took was $2,200. That was just for the Botox in business. And then my fillers course was $1,700. I had travel expenses, about $250. I was able to drive, fly. I bought some books for $300. My malpractice is $2,400. Lawyers' fees, trying to figure out, and that a lot of what Injectables EDU does is help you figure out your state laws because there's so much variation between the different states. But
Right.
I spent about $3,000 trying to get all that figured out. And I actually sell a lot of resources that, like a medical director agreement and some things like that. So you don't have to pay somebody $3,000 to do all that. You need to file for an LLC. That was $350. I started out by just making my own website and doing Bluehost. That was $350. But I would recommend as soon as you're able to get a real website, have somebody make
Absolutely.
that for you. And then there's some like miscellaneous, like some supplies and
Right.
having reversal on hand. And I really recommend to people to start with just Botox when you take your first class. It is almost like overload to try and learn fillers right out the gate. I'm actually working on an article right now about why you should start with just Botox. But like financially and just like mental bandwidth, it makes a lot more sense to start with Botox because you're going to pull your filler clients from your clientele that you already have from Botox. That's the gateway drug. It also, you need to have an office before you inject fillers. There's just a lot of reasons. I wish I would have started with just Botox and then very quickly, even just a couple months later, gone back for a filler course. But I think it's hard to take that initial class and be up and running in a timely manner with filler and actually get to practice it.
So as you grew, so it took you about $10,000 to get it started. Now, walk me through how much it's cost to get to where you're at now. Do you feel like that you've invested a lot of money back into the business?
Oh yeah, I'm still pretty much investing almost everything back into the business. You can kind of take a loss in your business, I think, for like 3 years. So I'm trying to take advantage of that. But
Well, the 3-year thing, just FYI, okay? So you can actually claim a loss for however long you want. It just depends on when you get audited. So just
yeah,
FYI.
I just definitely don't want that.
No.
I'm busy enough. One of my
Right.
friends has actually been audited like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, what? Why?
What are they doing? Like,
Yeah,
they must be writing off some real shady shit because,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but she came out unscathed, ironically enough. But anyways, so one nice thing about Botox and fillers is your cost of goods is pretty high. It's very direct. Like you ideally want your cost of goods to be about 30%. Realistically, especially when you're newer, it's going to be more like 50%. 55%, and you're going to constantly be trying to get those down because as you're able to order bigger orders of neurotoxin and fillers, you start to get a price break. And when you're brand new, you're just not able to carry a lot of product.
So explain cost of goods real quick for people that might not understand that. You said 30 to 50%. Like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah. So one thing, oftentimes it looks like there is a lot of money coming in aesthetics. So like an injector should be making on average $500 to $1,000 an hour in revenue. So that's what the client is paying you. So say $750 an hour. So only about half of that is going to not be going to just buying your Botox and your filler and your syringes. And we're not even talking about when you start paying somebody else to inject for you. Like I have a nurse practitioner and a nurse that inject for me. And so then you're also looking at paying somebody their wages on top of that. Ideally, you want that to be 20% or less what you pay somebody else. So if there's a big pie of 100% and that's the revenue, then take about 50% of that for cost of goods. And then if you start to think about taxes and paying somebody else, even though it looks like, oh my gosh, you're making $1 million in your spa over a year. That is by no means anywhere close to what you're taking home. Like your actual profit of what you cash out, maybe 20%. I think that might be a good guess.
So for $1 million aesthetics practice, you're going to walk away with anywhere between $200,000 to $300,000 basically in your pocket at the end of the year.
Yep. And $1 million med spa is kind of actually the norm once you kind of are doing a full time and doing it for real and mid-level successful. That's not even like, oh my gosh, you have to be the most successful med spa. So you're definitely not going to be in the poorhouse, even if you're just hitting kind of middle of the road marks for a full-blown med spa.
So how long did it take you then to get to like that number, for example? So how many years do you feel like it would take? I mean, did it take 2 years, 3 years to get to a revenue amount of $1 million to generate $200,000 or $300,000 profit you can pocket? I guess essentially, how long did it take you to replace your CRNA salary?
I think there's so many different levels of how you can do this. Like you can do this completely just like Botox party, side gig, and it pays for your vacation that year. It only takes about, 5 real clients to get to where you're like self-sustaining and you've paid for your insurance, you paid for your class and all that. So it's a pretty low barrier to entry. And then you can have somebody who, you're just injectables only, maybe still doing it part-time, And then you get up to, you're one of the premier places in your town and you've got all these employees. It depends how aggressively somebody pursues it to say how long it would take. It's just like some people are never going to take off. And I talk to a lot of people, and you've got to just like really have that drive and be so persistent and figure all these issues are going to come up, and you've just got to like prioritize and knock them down. And then like I know some people who they start by like buying a space and they've got all this investment money, and that trajectory is going to be a lot shorter than somebody who's more conservative, which is really a route I went, and you expand as your business demands it. So that's a lot less risky.
That was the safe route though. You were working,
right?
You didn't have to take out debt. You didn't have to do these kinds of things, right? I mean, you slowly grew it. It took very little risk.
Right. And that's who, we marketed to with the class. And my whole site is based on people who, we all have a good primary job that gives us financial stability. So APRNs, we're looking for essentially a better lifestyle. That may not necessarily mean less hours. It means, I think, like more passion about what you're doing and more control. I did get tired of like my anesthesia group got bought multiple times while I was there, and it just got frustrating. Like every time somebody new came in, they would slash our benefits, and it just, your schedule could change on a dime, and don't even have to talk about COVID. So I think it's just a much better life with so much more earning potential, but you don't want to also risk like bankrupting your family and your kids can't go to college because of this kind of desire to do something else. So you have to, I think it's best to take those baby steps and build a good foundation and grow as it makes sense.
Right. It's basically the lowest risk option you can take. When you take $400,000-$500,000 loan out to get something built, you are taking a massive risk. And, like if you're going to jump in this full time and take out a massive amount of debt, you're gambling when you could go the route that you and me took. I did the exact same thing with my men's health clinic. Worked part-time, got that going, and you did the exact same thing. You walk away with no debt, and now you have a successful full-time practice that took 3 years, right?
Yeah. And only now am I making that $500,000, investments in a new space and a fancy laser. And all the time people are like, oh, should I buy this laser hair removal machine? Should I buy this? And I'm like, that's not the question that you should be asking. What you should be asking is, are my clients asking for this service? Is there a demand for it from the clients I have? Because Botox gets people in the door. That's what people search for on Google. And then they come to you and then you tell them what they need. So they're trusting you as the expert and you tell them which service from there, because they're just going to say, I don't like this line. Can you put Botox in it or filler or whatever? And you're the person who says, well, actually the best treatment course for you is this. So until you have literally hundreds, almost 1,000 clients, maybe even, most people should not be considering buying a really big purchase like a laser. That's how people went under during COVID, is getting into these medical device deals. I think that's the number one thing that will ruin you.
Yeah. I mean, when you're taking out a huge loan for something that you need patience to pay for itself, right?
You want that loan to be 5x. So like if a device is costing you $1,000 a month, you need that device to be bringing in $5,000 a month. So that's a good little like piece of math that I give people.
Yeah, that makes sense. Walk me through where you're at now. So you are buying your own building, right? So now you feel comfortable enough to take out a loan and to step up to the next level, right?
Yeah. And only when I did feel like I had the base, did we make that jump.
And it took you 3 years to get there, right? Like people need to understand that this isn't something that took 6 months. Like this took 3 years, blood, sweat, and tears, working your ass off.
Yes, that's very accurate. My husband can attest to that.
Those sleepless nights, anxiety-ridden nights. I mean, there are sometimes you don't know why you're even doing this. I mean, you spend no time with family, friends. I mean, you're killing yourself.
We're really selling this. Yeah, we're selling this good. But the highs are high, but the lows are low. And I feel like that's what you're describing. And the highs are just, anybody who has kids can relate to this. Like the highs are high, but the lows are low, because this is your child. Like I have my 2 boys, and then I don't know, some days I'm not sure which is number one, the business or the kids. But it's up there. Like this is my baby.
Oh yeah.
And I love the business. So there's a lot of joy in that. But there's a lot of, whenever I have a client who's not happy or there's not the outcome you want, I mean, it is just soul sucking.
Absolutely.
much more it's outweighed. I mean, I get text messages any time of the day from my clients, like pictures of them out, like I'm so happy, like making people feel better about themselves changes the way, and I know this as a consumer, the way that I navigate the world, and my confidence is up by like the fact I don't want to look like Kim Kardashian, and none of my clients want that either. It's about feeling like you're the best version of yourself. And like that brings you a confidence that lets you navigate the world in a more positive, confident way. And like that's worth so much more. I think Botox is sometimes viewed as being vain or superficial, but like just feeling like you're a little bit better version of yourself, accentuating your best features and downplaying the ones you don't love as much, like that's huge. I had somebody recently who ended up losing like 50 pounds. And I was like, how'd you do it? And she was like, honestly, I came in and I got Botox and I did something for myself. And I looked in the mirror and I kind of liked what I saw a little bit more. And I just kept taking care of myself and doing stuff. I was like, that's crazy. I mean, that's really why I do it.
So you gave her the confidence to then make a positive change in her life. And that gives you the confidence to know what you're capable of doing, such as growing your business to, where you're at right now. And, the whole thing about, what it is that you didn't do. So, people hear success stories like this. You, after 3 years, have a $500,000 practice and now you're buying your building and all this kind of stuff. People hear about the outcome, right? They hear about the outcome of, I started a men's health practice and now we're killing it, over $500,000 and this kind of stuff. But what people don't understand is that it's the things that you didn't do to get there. And so by the things that you didn't do, it was, not going out when your family went out or missing a holiday or hanging out with friends. It's the things that you didn't do to get to where you are at. All right. I hope everyone's enjoying the episode so far. I just wanted to take a quick break to thank everyone listening and also give a big thank you to all of my social media followers and email subscribers. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to our email list at www.elitenp.com and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Email subscribers will receive updates on new weekly podcast episodes, multiple weekly articles we publish, new courses, and everything else related to helping you succeed. Remember, all elite nurse practitioner courses are designed to help you build a niche practice, increase your financial strength, and to break free from the rat race. If I can break free and the other countless nurse practitioners can break free, then so can you. Additionally, please share this podcast with your other nurse practitioner sisters and brothers out there. The more NPs that venture out on their own, the stronger our profession will become. Now, let's get back to the episode. So tell us, how long did it take you to get to the point where you were able to comfortably, I guess, go from full-time to part-time? Like, what were the steps that kind of brought you there? Did you hit like a certain income level that you were like, okay, I'm comfortable now. Now I can drop down to 1 day a week. My debts are paid off. Like, walk us through that process. What do you feel like was the thing that made you be like, okay, now it's time to go?
It took me about 1.5 years to feel comfortable with that. And it ended up being time. Like I just didn't have the time between, seeing clients in the office, and a little bit too, you have to have the availability for them to book. It's like this, kind of catch 22. You need to be available to get more clients, but you need more clients to have the freedom to have more office hours. So it was like constantly balancing that. And it just finally felt like something had to give. And because I did understand our financial picture, our personal finances, I realized that we could do this. Like financially, it really wasn't a risk for us. And I was bringing in enough through the business. And I was like, I didn't leave anesthesia completely. I could always pick up LT, and I knew I could fall back on that. So yeah, I think I just was at my breaking point time wise and with my family, where I was like, I've got to free something up. And I definitely knew I didn't want to free up. I didn't want to cut back on what I was doing with my business, because really, I mean, I could make, if I just look at a single day of being in the office versus a single day of doing anesthesia, I mean, I'm making significantly more per day when I'm in the office.
How much more are you making, do you feel like?
It changes each month. Like I would say we just each month we're making more than we were the last month. Like I'm definitely still in a big growth phase, but I would say I'm kind of at like a revenue of about 50K per month, which that's not certainly not big for a med spa, but considering, how I started and being so conservative and all that. And it's just like every month we're making more. And now like once I'm in the new space and have more services, I think I'll see another really huge jump.
Oh, no doubt about it. I'm sure as soon as you start integrating more things into it, absolutely. Do you have
Yeah.
plans on hiring out other people to start doing work for you? Like, are you seeing the big picture of where your business is working for you and you're not working for your business?
Yeah, I have two injectors with me now. One's very part time, one's full time. And I'm trying to kind of shift more of the actual injecting to them. Definitely still be doing it, but my passion really is a lot of it's the website and the consulting and the teaching and the train. Like I've always loved teaching. Like as a CRNA, I love taking students. I just have a good personality or demeanor for it. Like I don't get too stressed and all that. And I love just sharing what knowledge I have. And it's so crazy in the aesthetics community. Nobody wants to do that. I mean, it is so hard to break in. I reached out to somebody that I knew who was doing this in my area. And like the first thing she said to me was, do not steal my clients. She wouldn't tell me like who her medical director was. She would barely even tell me where her office was. I mean, it was an unreal experience. And that's where I'm trying to kind of help just boost up the network of new injectors and kind of change this idea of it can be very lonely when you're just running your own business. You need that network of when you have a question, and the support you get from having the community is so much more than, the few people who are going to hop between provider to provider.
So is this the next page in Cassie's life? Starting this newer practice in this new building and having injectors work for you and developing a passive income stream there, and then focusing more on the consulting side of it, the teaching aspect?
Yeah, definitely. And I love the idea of like, I love our online course. It's so great because we put so much like work, blood, sweat, and tears, but like now that baby's born and it can make money on its own. You know what I mean? It's like
Right.
there's no reason to reinvent the wheel either. I'm really excited. I'm going to be doing a workshop and going to be a speaker at the AANP National Conference this year.
Awesome. Good for you.
So I think that's going to be some really great exposure and just, get to meet some more nurse practitioners and kind of, I think it helps to see somebody else that has done it and has been successful. And it's just like, look, there's room for you. Come on, I'll help you. That's really how I feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah. People don't know it's possible. And it's just getting the word out. It's just like marketing your practice, right? I mean, you just have to get the word out to people that, listen, if I can do it, anyone else can do it. I'm not special. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
smarter than the next person. I mean, I'm not special. If I can do it, you can.
Yeah, it takes hard work. And like that's the thing. It's like I tell people it's like diet and exercise. It's like we all know how to do diet and exercise. It's the actual doing it that's hard. And that's why I don't clam up at sharing what I've learned, because it takes a ton of work. And if you're willing to do that work, then I would love to have you in this industry with me. But it doesn't happen on its own. Somebody doesn't just tell you, there's no magic button to push. It takes all the hours and so the people who are willing to do that, I want to help them out.
They're not competition. They're your sister and brother, right?
Right. Yes, they're your colleagues. And that's why it's
Right.
so funny how in this industry, it's so that mentality is that closed down, just scarcity mentality is just so prevalent, and it's not necessary, because I don't think, when you're practicing as a FNP and you're just, seeing primary care, you're not like no animosity towards other people doing primary care, because everybody needs primary care. There's enough patients to go around, and it's changing our mentality to that in aesthetics. Like there's enough clients to go around.
Why do you think that mentality exists in aesthetics? I mean, I find that kind of odd. Like, I mean, that mentality doesn't exist with, like men's health, for example, and some other things that I know of. I mean, why do you think it's prevalent in aesthetics? Do you have any ideas or thoughts?
I don't, maybe because everybody's been clients have been so kind of close-lipped about that they get these services. Maybe it feels like there's less people out there getting them than there are. Yeah, I really don't know. I do not know. Well, and you've dealt with me enough, like, aesthetics people, we have our own quirks. It's definitely an interesting group of people. But yeah, I don't know where it comes from.
How would you define an aesthetics person then? Like, what do you feel like you need to successfully get into this practice? Like, I mean, what would be some attributes, maybe some people listen to this, like, is aesthetics for me or not? Like, maybe go through maybe some attributes, like what makes someone a possible aesthetics person? Because I'll tell you right now, it ain't me.
It's probably not.
No,
You don't like
that's
to,
not me.
you don't like to nickel and dime people as much as we do.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think ultimately, and this is everything in medicine, but being a good listener, having good people skills, you have to have good hands. And I do, I teach enough courses that not everybody there, there's the rare person who comes through that I like pray they don't ever touch a real human
Wow.
again. But for the most part, you just have to have decent hands. It is a skill like anything that you can learn, just like starting an IV. You need to have some basic like physical skill, hand-eye inclination, and being kind of gentle. But there's a lot of just the consultation is probably such a clutch piece of I say things a lot like I hear you saying that you don't like these lines. It's a fine line between not making somebody feel worse about themselves. That's a big problem is like somebody's coming in to feel better about themselves, not have you tell them every single thing under the sun that you can do for them because they're so busted. That's not what we're trying. So walking the fine line of saying like, this is what you've come in that you've identified that you don't love and just kind of nicely, like also building people up, just like you have. I always find something really positive to say about somebody's appearance because everybody has these great attributes as well. So I'm constantly saying things like, oh my gosh, people come and pay me good money to have lips like yours. Like you have a beautiful jawline. Like, so just being able to read people and have and connect and listen. You don't even have to be. I wasn't really a big consumer of all this stuff before I got into it. And I've never been really into makeup, but I would say your traditional aesthetics person is oftentimes somebody that's always really been into, the makeup and big consumers maybe of Botox and fillers, but you don't have to be that way. I see a lot of, especially NPs, that they're just love the anatomy and love the clinical side of it as well.
So outside the science and clinical aspect of it, do you feel like that you need to have an eye for art on here? Like, I mean, how much of this is art? How much of this is science?
I think probably less than people think. I think understanding the anatomy is much more clutch than having this artistic eye. It certainly helps. And I think there's a big faction of aesthetics that, they also, paint or draw or do sculpting. But I really don't think, I think that the aesthetics field kind of tries to put that out on people to, I don't know, scare people away or say like, I'm so special. It's just God given to me. But I think it's very procedural. And when you understand the true mechanisms and the products and the facial anatomy and that movement, you gain that eye. You really do.
Gotcha. So it's definitely something learned. You don't have to just be
Yeah.
born with it. Yeah.
No, I don't think you do at all. And I know there will be people who would say otherwise, but I really don't think you have to be an artist or have any of these special born skills. I think having the desire and all that will come the more you're in it.
Gotcha. So you can definitely be trained in it. Now with training though, what blew my mind when, me and you consulted on the course was like the cost of training. It's not a very expensive practice to start. I mean, most practices really aren't. I mean, you can get most of these businesses up for $5,000 to $10,000, but the barrier into aesthetics is like the cost of the training and the education. Like, why do you feel like it's so expensive to get in on some of these things? Is it because that maybe you guys are selective in who you want in here to keep it not as saturated? Like, do you think there's an underlying reason on why some of this stuff's so expensive? I mean, I've seen these courses that are $5,000, $10,000. I mean, it just seems outrageous.
Yeah. I think it's important. All classes are not made the same.
Right.
I do think it's really important to pick a class that has a small class size. That's these big box generic ones. I very strongly believe are not the way to go. Like they notoriously, models don't show up and you're very hit or miss about who your instructor is going to be. Like, is this some plastics doc who hasn't done anything to keep up with the times in the last 20 years and he's still injecting the way he learned at his weekend course forever ago? Or is this somebody who's really skilled? And I just think that you should pick a good trainer that you truly have confidence in. And there's that consistency. And usually, like I know anybody who takes my classes, you get that mentorship and continuing like access to me, which you're not going to get in some of these other classes. I think partially because you can make so much money in an hour injecting and running your business, to pull a quality person away from that is one reason why it's so expensive.
That makes sense. I mean, if you're making $1,000 an hour, you're worth $1,000 an hour. Why would you go train someone for $100 an hour? Right? I mean, your time's valuable.
Yeah.
So let's say someone gets this training, someone gets started. What are your thoughts? So how do you feel about standalone Botox clinic for, the first practice? Or do you feel like that a better option would be is to maybe start a more well-rounded practice, more wellness thing where, maybe you do some Botox in it. And then on top of that, maybe do some hormone replacement therapy, IV infusion. Like, what are your thoughts there on someone who's wanting to get started? Like, do you feel like that it's Botox alone is sufficient enough? Or do you feel like that maybe adding some other services would increase your revenue streams? Or is that going to be based on someone's time as well?
Yeah, I definitely think it's good to expand past Botox. But you will hear people say like, oh, Botox doesn't make any money, which that's also not true because I guarantee you that most med spas, when they break down their income, where it's coming from, a huge portion of it is from Botox. And that's because you're doing so many of them. So like the margins might not be as high, but also I don't want people to write Botox off as you can't make money doing that. That's just, the gateway drug. It's the loss leader. And I don't subscribe to that as well. I think you can make good money doing just Botox. But I think once you get into other services like fillers, adding on, more aesthetic stuff like facials, chemical peels, especially once you are at the point where you can purchase a laser, you can really have some great margins on that sort of stuff. So you definitely should expand when your clientele supports that. I think I don't know a ton about hormone therapy, but I definitely think to me that seems like a numbers game of like having a lot of people doing it. I don't know how great the margins are. Same thing with IVs. Like everybody's so into IV therapy and like I offer IVs. But again, people buy what you sell them. And I sell Botox and fillers. That's what I'm passionate about. I'm not passionate about IVs.
Gotcha. So what are your thoughts then on, I guess, wellness practices? So, I mean, your focus is aesthetics only. So, for the nurse practitioner out there listening, if you want to do aesthetics is what it sounds like. Start from Botox, slowly grow it up and that kind of thing. Give it a year or two, start adding more and more aesthetics focused services. What's your opinion then on these general wellness practices that might do hormones, IV, and all these other things and Botox on top of it? Like, do you feel like that for the patient, they might be getting a disservice going there versus, aesthetics practice like yours? I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think Botox lends itself well to be an add-on to a clinic like that. I think fillers is more you want to be doing that on a frequent basis. Like it is a little bit more of that artistic eye. The stakes are a little bit higher. You can have a vascular occlusion. I think you just want to really fillers. I think you want to be practicing that very frequently, ideally, if you're going to have that as a part of your practice. I think Botox is a skill that can be learned and added on to a general wellness practice, and that you would get enough practice with it to still be really good. It's just knowing the muscles and paralyzing that muscle. It's a little bit more formulaic, I would say.
Yeah. So it's a great little revenue stream if you wanted to add it to your practice.
Yeah. I think if you want to expand out and add fillers, that you want to have more of like one dedicated person who's really good at that and frequently able to do those services.
Okay, gotcha. So when you start going down more of the deeper rabbit hole, then that's what should be more of your focus then, or have someone that's going to do that as their focus.
Yeah. But I think you can get, good at Botox and add that on nicely to any other wellness practice.
Sure. Okay. So do you have any pieces of advice for anyone listening to this that might want to get into aesthetics or maybe just wants to become just an entrepreneur in general? Do you have any, I guess, final words, final advice?
My advice as far as being an entrepreneur is like, go for it. Like do it in a conservative way that you're not betting the farm, but you've got just this one chance to kind of make things what you want it to be. And it's like, go for it. Like when I think many of us feel like, I don't know, do I really want to do this till I'm 65? Like I was doing 24 colonoscopies a day, and it wasn't that I didn't like it, but I was like, I don't know that I really want to do this all day, every day till I'm 65. And now I don't even feel like I work at all. So I'd say like, go for it. Like try it out. The worst thing that happens is it fails and you haven't risked your whole financial picture. So be it. I think anybody who's interested in aesthetics, I'd really recommend checking out Injectables EDU, and you can make a free 30-minute mentoring call with me. I really just do that to give back, because sometimes all people need is that little like talk with somebody, and it's like, you can do it, or there's some barrier. If I can help a little bit with that barrier, then I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, no, great. I think that one point I want to touch on there that you mentioned is that it doesn't even feel like work. I don't wake up dreading getting in my car and going to work and being stuck there for 12 hours. Like that just doesn't happen. Does that ever happen to you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I don't feel like I'm working anymore.
Right.
I pretty much, I thought that people who said that, that saying like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I was like, I feel like that's an unrealistic expectation, that you should just be happy if you have a good job that pays you well. And now that I do this, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's unreal. Like the sacrifices of not going and doing this or that. And if I had to do like a call shift on a weekend, oh my God, the fit I would have. And now it's like, I work a lot of nights and weekends, but it's like where I want to be.
Right. You're not stuck doing something you don't want to do. Like the thought of me working a Saturday and a Sunday, 12, 13-hour shifts in urgent care anymore. Makes me want to throw up.
Yeah. Well, and me and you
Yeah.
were like, oh, hey, you wanna talk on Christmas Eve day, or like, we mean,
Right.
there's
Right.
no not work
It's a
days. Like,
Thursday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and we're sitting here talking. Like, I mean, that's just what you can do as
yeah.
an entrepreneur. You kind of just set your own schedule. You do what you want. It's absolutely amazing.
And the connection with other entrepreneurs is so cool too. Like, we all
Yeah.
have the same problems. Doesn't matter what you're
Yep.
doing, and it just feels like a much more like true friendship, even more so than other like anesthesia providers. That was kind of what we had in common. But like entrepreneurs, it's really your life's work, and you have that passion. And when you connect with other people about that, it's on a different level.
It's a mindset. Our mindset is on a different wavelength than the average just worker. I mean, that's just how it is for being
Yeah,
an entrepreneur. And I think that's
yeah,
something that can be
I,
learned. I don't think that you're born with it. I mean, I think that you're born with some attributes with it. I feel like that, like you mentioned, your confidence started growing. You just saw more opportunity in the world and, those kinds of things. I mean, that's something that's like, it was developed over time, right?
yeah, yeah. And then once you get going, you see stuff everywhere. And I tell you what, I'm so excited about all the new stuff you have coming this year with Elite NP. Like, you have some stuff hooking people up with medical directors. You've got your buying group. What else did I just see you had coming out? I was like, this is going to be amazing.
Yeah, the group purchasing organization, we're still working on that. I got a marketing agency. So like everyone wants to start their practice who just doesn't have the time for marketing. I'm going to get you connected
Yes.
with a group of people doing it. Yeah. So I'm really trying to build as many services as I can just to help everyone
Yeah.
out. Cause I know that, you just want to do patient care, make some money, build your
Yeah.
business, but maybe you don't want to do the marketing. Maybe you don't want to set up accounts with a bunch of places like them. So I'm trying to make it kind of lower that barrier entry. You know what I mean? Like there was something
Yeah.
like that for
And
you and me.
once you get the CME stuff through, I mean, that's going to be huge, because then it's like literally no risk at all. Because oftentimes you might have your business who your hospital you work for gives you CME money, and it's like, well, you might as well check this out. So I think that's going to be, one more barrier gone for people.
Absolutely. I totally agree. That's why we're doing it. So just hope that the ANCC gives it to us.
I
We've
have
been
no
going through the
doubt. I just hope it
process. Yeah,
happens quickly. I know we could talk forever, but yeah, I
sure.
just really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So just shout out to everyone. Where can people learn more about you?
Go to injectablesedu.com. You can get in touch with me there. You can look for me, Injectables EDU, on Facebook and Instagram, but really injectablesedu.com is the best way.
Cool. Awesome. Sounds good. Hey, listen, Cassie, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, great talking to you as always.
All right. You take care. Thanks.
You too.
I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation with Cassie. Cassie is absolutely killing it. She started about the same time I started, about 3 years ago. She did the exact same thing that I did, continued to work, started a part-time hustle. Part-time hustle eventually replaced her job, and now she has a full-time practice. She has employees. She's killing it. Listen, if she can do it, I can do it. There's nothing special about us. We just put the work into it, and we did it. That's all it takes, guys. It just takes for you to just take action. Stop getting stuck in analysis paralysis. Stop being scared. Take action. Like what Cassie said, what's the worst that can happen? Really, if you're working full time and you start a little side practice, what's the worst that can happen? Seriously, answer that question. The most realistic worst case scenario is the business fails and you continue working. That's the worst case scenario. You're not going to go bankrupt, like Cassie mentioned as well. Don't bet the farm. Don't take out a bunch of stupid debt. Don't go into debt with this. Okay, it's a little side business. Every one of you can save $10,000. If you can't save up $10,000, you need to stand back and look at your entire financial picture. Something's wrong. Email me. I'd be more than happy to help try to identify what's wrong. But everyone should be able to save up $10,000. Get the 10,000, start the side hustle, continue working. You have little to risk. It worked for me and it worked for Cassie. Be sure to holler at Cassie at injectablesedu.com. Follow me at www.elitenp.com. Appreciate all you guys. Talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye. Thank you for listening to the show. Quick legal disclaimer. The content of this podcast is meant for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be used as legal, financial, medical, regulatory, or practice-specific advice. For information pertaining to your specific legal, financial, medical, or practice-specific needs, please be sure to consult with your lawyer, CPA, medical director, and or your state's practice laws and the most up-to-date clinical guidelines. As always, do your due diligence when it comes to any information found online and in podcasts. The content in this podcast is copyrighted by Galaxy Medical Southwest 2022 and cannot be duplicated, rebroadcasted, or reproduced without our written permission.